Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are diving into a truly fascinating and honestly kind of counterintuitive cultural shift. We're witnessing digital natives, people who have literally never known a world without the internet, intentionally tossing their sleek, powerful smartphones in favor of vintage, analog technology. It is a full-blown retro tech rebellion. And the reasons behind it? Well, they're probably going to change the way you think about your own daily screen time. Which brings us to a massive question. Why on earth is the most plugged-in generation suddenly trashing their smartphones? It's incredibly ironic when you think about it. You've got Gen Z, right? A demographic raised entirely on hyperconnectivity, instant messaging, and endless social feeds, and now they are actively seeking out what we used to consider inferior or disconnected tech. They're basically walking away from the absolute pinnacle of modern convenience. But why?
Okay, let's dive into this contrast because it's pretty stark. On one side, you have modern digital life. It's defined by sleek smartphones, sophisticated algorithm-fed apps designed to keep you scrolling forever, and this constant, inescapable connectivity. It's built for hyperconvenience, sure, but it has become completely exhausting. On the other side, we have this retro reboot. Vintage flip phones, heavy mechanical typewriters, and very intentional offline detachment. What people are actually craving right now is the liberating friction of the analog past. They're finding that a simpler, less plugged-in life is actually a whole lot more fulfilling.
So part one of our breakdown. What exactly is making a comeback? Let's take a look at the gear. Here's a quick snapshot of the actual vintage gear flying off digital shelves right now. We're seeing a huge return to basic flip phones, like the Nokia 2780. We're seeing manual typewriters, specifically models like the classic 1964 Olivetti. People are hunting down Wi-Fi-free classic iPods and basic MP3 players. There's a major revival of point-and-shoot digital cameras, alongside 16 and 35mm film cameras. And yeah, absolutely, even CD players and old-school boomboxes are being dusted off and brought back into daily rotation. The sheer volume of demand driving this trend is just staggering. To put that into perspective, in 2025, eBay reported that classic iPods were being searched for a whopping 1,300 times per hour, on average, globally. That's wild. People are aggressively hunting for offline listening tools, and because of this massive spike in interest, prices for these legacy music devices actually jumped anywhere from 40 to 60%. So this isn't just a fringe hobby, it's a major consumer movement. Moving on to Section 2, escaping the doom scroll, because we really need to talk about the psychological breaking point here. Take the experience of Sonia Saidakova, a 23-year-old grad student at NYU. About a year ago, she completely swapped her iPhone for a dumbed-down Nokia flip phone. As she puts it, it's an indescribable feeling to feel so detached and not constantly available. By stepping away from her smartphone, picking up a digital camera, and quitting apps like Spotify, she says she feels liberated, happier, and significantly less anxious. She truly believes we're culturally at a breaking point, and people are just entirely sick of digital overload. That feeling is totally echoed by 26-year-old New Yorker Rachel Reich. She battled a severe Instagram addiction for over a decade after getting her first smartphone at just 9 years old. She tried deleting and re-downloading the app multiple times a day, even hanging a sign in her room to remind herself that doom scrolling was rotting her brain. When her iPhone finally died, she didn't upgrade. Nope. Instead, she bought a tiny smartphone with a 3-inch screen. She says it structurally inhibits you from going on it. The interface is literally too small to get sucked into, effectively breaking her addiction through hardware design. And this brilliantly illustrates the extreme lengths people will go to for genuine focus. Brooklyn fiction writer Dean Jamieson deliberately creates friction by using a metal green 1964 manual typewriter to draft his work. He says, "The biggest thing is having no access to the internet. When you're trying to write on your computer, I find it to be very distracting and destructive." For Dean, the physical tactility of editing by hand on paper entirely replaces the anxiety of a ticking cursor and the endless temptation of opening a new web browser tab. This all builds into an entire lifestyle shift. Think about it. The modern iPhone habit is automated but incredibly isolated. We rely strictly on Google Maps, passively stream on Spotify, and doom scroll after work. But the retro habit, that requires friction that actually yields connection. Sonia noted that asking strangers for directions instead of staring at a map has deeply enriched her life with genuine social interactions. People are buying physical CDs, reading physical books, and actually going out to the movies again. The intentional friction of retro tech essentially forces you to engage with the real world.
Which brings us to Section 3, preserving a tech-free childhood. How are parents co-opting this trend?
Consider this really powerful perspective from Alex Becker, a 34-year-old mother from outside Philadelphia. She states it pretty clearly. The second kids get these devices, the innocence of childhood is lost. She represents a growing number of parents who have absolutely zero interest in getting their 5- and 2-year-olds a smartphone or an iPad. She wants to delay the online drama and actively preserve a 1990s-style childhood for them. You know, one filled with tangible joy rather than an algorithm pushing skincare products on Instagram. So, how exactly are parents executing this? Well, here are some of the analog parenting tactics we're seeing right now. First off, outright refusing to buy smart devices for young kids. They're also thrifting CDs and old boomboxes so kids experience a full album rather than some narrow algorithmic playlist. For family vacations, they're handing out disposable cameras. And crucially, they're using old offline devices for routines. For example, a DC mom named Elizabeth Mitchell bought her 13-year-old a used iPod on eBay, specifically so he could listen to music at bedtime, completely avoiding the danger of late-night web entanglements. The emotion behind this shift is just incredibly touching. A 27-year-old Manhattan deli clerk who proudly uses a 1950s typewriter he inherited shared this thought. He said, "We used to wake up, see our moms, and eat our breakfast. Now we wake up and go straight to our phones." That really grounds all the data and trends we're looking at today in a deep, nostalgic longing for lost family connection. It's fundamentally about looking up from the screen and actually being present with the people around you.
All right, let's pivot to Section 4, the e-waste incentive, because there's a huge global benefit to this trend as well. The global impact of our digital habits is absolutely massive. 62 million tons. According to a 2022 report from the World Health Organization, that is the estimated amount of e-waste produced globally in just a single year. Discarded electronics are literally the fastest-growing solid waste stream in the entire world. And the truly alarming part? These discarded smart devices are packed with highly toxic materials, like lead and mercury, that are just poisoning the environment.
So the crucial point is how this massive environmental crisis connects directly back to our mindset as consumers. Rachel Reich, who we mentioned earlier with the tiny 3-inch phone, summed up her motivation by saying, "I get a sinister feeling from how much waste we produce. I try not to buy things when I don't need them." Embracing retro tech is fundamentally a rebellion against this endless cycle of forced upgrades, planned obsolescence, and the literal mountains of electronic garbage it produces. And hey, beyond the environment, there is a highly practical economic side to all of this. Refurbished simply equals affordable. Buying a $200 tiny smartphone or fixing up an old manual typewriter isn't just eco-friendly, it's an incredibly savvy financial alternative. As eBay noted, pre-owned devices are becoming the go-to solution as the costs for endless monthly digital subscriptions, cloud storage, and brand new $1,000 iPhones just continue to skyrocket. People are finally stopping to ask, why pay a premium for a new device that just makes me anxious anyway? All of this leads us to one final overarching question. Are we finally reaching our digital breaking point? Well, the evidence suggests that for a growing number of people, the answer is a resounding yes. So, I challenge you to reflect on your own screen time today. When you look at your smartphone, do you see a helpful tool or do you see a trap? Are you ready for the retro reboot?